Hi folks, hope you're alright. This is a video on drugs in sport. So in this section we look at legal supplements, what we like to call supplements in sport, and we also look at illegal drugs, so the substances that people take that are banned and will subsequently get you banned from your sport, serving a suspension, serving a fine, permanently excluded if you're a repeat offender, if you're found guilty of taking them. One little thing just to highlight is that you might come across the term ergogenic aids. Ergogenic aids. That is a substance or a practice that is used in order to give you an advantage. So in terms of a supplement, supplements are legal ergogenic aids. In terms of drugs, they are illegal ergogenic aids. You might even hear me say and come across people who talk about PEDs. Okay, they are performance enhancing drugs. Okay, so they are drugs, they are illegal. You will be banned if found guilty of taking them. Now, in terms of the AQA syllabus, there are 4 PEDs, performance enhancing drugs, or illegal ergogenic aids, or illegal drugs that they could ask you questions on, and we're going to look at one each in turn. Okay, so number 1, as you might expect, is the old favourite, anabolic steroids. Okay, so we're going to look at why people take them. We're also going to look at what's called HGH, or human growth hormones. We're also going to look at something that's been in the news, over the recent years with the Lance Armstrong scandal, EPO, erythropoietin. People think it's erythroprotein, it's erythropoietin. And we're also going to look at one that you might not have heard of out of all of these, and they are beta blockers. I'm going to look at why athletes take each of these, because here's the question that you might get asked. It might be a discuss, because remember, these 4 things are banned, yet people still take them. So the question might be along the lines of, why do they risk taking them when, if found guilty, they'll be banned? So what are the beneficial effects of taking each of these? But also, they are banned for a reason. One of those key reasons are harmful side effects. So why are people going to risk taking them, but what are the damaging side effects? Right, so firstly, let's look at the one that grabs all the headlines, the one that people probably know well, better than any others. Anabolic steroids. Anabolic steroids you can get in tablet form. You can also inject them straight into your system. And look at this picture here. That is one of the prime reasons that people take anabolic steroids. Increased muscle mass, increased strength, increased power. And they are all actually worth marks on the exam. So number 1, we get an increase in muscle mass through taking anabolic steroids. Okay, we subsequently, and this is a separate mark, get an increase in strength and or power. By the way, use your correct terminology. Muscle mass, you can put hypertrophy, however you want to pronounce it. However, as you can also see from the picture of this guy, you can see the veins, you can see a lot of the blood vessels sticking out, the arteries, you can see, the real high levels of definition, particularly on the abs, and look across there, across the pecs, you can actually see the muscle fibres. What a lot of people don't know is that they also increase fat metabolism. So not only am I going to get nice and big in terms of muscle mass, but I'm also going to strip a lot of the fat tissue as well, which makes me look even more defined. So it's great for people in power sports because it increases the muscle mass, but it also loses any fat tissue, so that what weight they are carrying is all about power and strength. They're not carrying any dead weight in terms of fat tissue as well. The other key big thing about anabolic steroids is they speed up recovery. If you inject or take a pill for anabolic steroids, you will not instantly put on muscle mass. You still have to train. But what anabolic steroids allow you to do is recover quicker in between training sessions, so you can get more training done. Now, I'm not defending people who take anabolic steroids, but the point is, they've actually trained very, very hard to get that kind of physique that you've got there. But the point is, they've used an illegal substance to get there because it speeds up the recovery. A human being can't recover normally that quickly. So they are illegal, and we're going to look at why they're illegal now. So I'll put them in red for danger. What are the side effects? What are the damaging side effects? As I've mentioned before in other things, every time you take on board extra amounts of something, it means extra work for the liver and kidneys. So you've got a risk of liver and kidney damage. And we see that quite a lot in people who've persistently used anabolic steroids. Other major side effects are things like increased aggression levels, which which is, to be honest, is another reason why some people take these sports, particularly in contact sports. But that does mean you're going to do daft things. You're going to get ill discipline. You're going to put yourself and others at risk that you wouldn't normally do so. Now, as well as liver and kidney damage, you've also got increased risk of heart failure or heart disease. When I was a kid growing up, I used to watch World's Strongest Man every Christmas and New Year whenever it was on. And sadly, a lot of those guys who were competing back then in the 80s, they didn't make it into the 50s. They died, they died in their 40s, mid-40s. And that's, there isn't, even though they don't advocate it, there is no use of drug testing and things like the World's Strongest Man, so they can pretty much take what they want to get the size that they need to be. So they're the big three in terms of the side effects. You'll know things like acne, increased paranoia, in males testicular shrinkage, in females they get facial hair growth, things like that. Yep, these are all side effects, but the three that I've written down there are the ones that are accepted on the mark schemes by the AQA exam board. So now we move on to HGH, human growth hormone. Now there's a lot of similarity between anabolic steroids and HGH, human growth hormone. So we need to make sure we've got a few things about this. Okay, number one, as you can see by the picture, and as you might expect, human growth hormone, again, you are going to increase muscle mass by taking HGH. But here's the unique one. Lance Armstrong, as well as being guilty of taking EPO, which we're going to look at in a minute, was also found guilty of taking human growth hormone. And you might think, well, hang on, he didn't look like this guy in the picture. He was very lean, quite skinny, in fact, as a lot of, elite Tour de France cyclists are, because it's an endurance-based event. Why would he be interested in taking HGH? Well, HGH actually increases blood glucose levels. Now, as a Tour de France cyclist, that's a massive bonus. If there's lots of glucose in my blood, that's more energy. That's more glucose being delivered to the muscles. That's more aerobic respiration taking place. So they're the two key big plus sides to taking human growth hormone. But they are banned for a reason, and he was found guilty of taking them and subsequently banned, and all of his titles stripped for a reason. So what are the side effects? Remember, like I said, there's two issues why something is banned. It's unfair, it gives someone an unfair advantage, or it's harmful to those that take it. We're looking very much from the harm issue. These substances do cause harm to the body. Again, what are the side effects? Very similar to anabolic steroids. There's an increased risk of heart disease. And the reason I was just hesitating a bit there, if you get short answer questions on each of these, on anabolic steroids, put increased risk of heart disease. If you get a short answer question on human growth hormone, put increased risk of heart disease. If you were to get an essay question where it's asking you about describe the benefits and side effects of anabolic steroids and HGH, remember, you're only going to get awarded the mark for increased risk of heart disease once. So you can apply it to either one, but only once. So that's something to be aware of. So there's one big side effect. We've also got, because it's packing your blood full of glucose, we also have an increased risk of diabetes. Remember, diabetes is the inability of you to control blood sugar levels. If HGH is packing your blood full of glucose, you're going to become less sensitive to insulin, and you're going to develop diabetes, which is what essentially diabetes is. You're not going to be able to control your blood sugar levels anymore, so that's something that's not good. Also, is one of those side effects. As glucose gets dragged into the blood, so does fat. So you've got increased fat deposits in blood. Now, obviously, what does that lead to? It leads to things like heart attacks. It leads to things like strokes. If you're depositing fat in your arterial walls, they're causing blockages. If that blockage is going to the brain, you're going to have a stroke. If that blockage is going to the heart, you're going to have a heart attack. So Yes, these things do have beneficial effects to athletes, but the side effects are very, very extreme. So finally then, beta blockers, may not have heard of them. Don't worry, that's the point in looking at this video. Beta blockers were originally designed for people who had high blood pressure and had previously had heart attacks. So it's like all vast majority of these things, they're a medicine first, and then someone who's bright and a bit of a cheat spots an angle that they could maybe use them to boost performance. So what do beta blockers do? Because they reduce your blood pressure and your heart rate, they reduce shaking and trembling. I hope it's not the case, but I'm sure some of you out there will have grandparents or relatives who are taking beta blockers for heart conditions and blood pressure conditions. So they reduce shaking and trembling. As a result, they reduce nervousness. They reduce heart rate. Okay? And they reduce blood pressure. So you might be thinking, why the hell take them? In most sports, you need a high heart rate and elevated blood pressure to get the oxygen and the glucose and everything else delivered to the muscles. Well, look at the picture on the top right, there's your clue. These are all about precision sports, where accuracy is very, very important. Golf, archery, snooker, things that require very steady hands. Okay, these are the type of athletes who will take these. Now, there was I think it was around about 2009, the PGA, US PGA, the Professional Golf Association in America, you know, McIlroy, Woods, Bubba Watson, Poulter, all these players play on the PGA. They did a widespread testing policy for beta blockers on the PGA a few years ago. They stopped it within a few months. They're saying that the results weren't showing them anything conclusive and it was better to direct those funds into other aspects of the game. That was their basic way of saying pretty much everyone tested positive for beta blockers. Now, you can't publish that, you can't report that because it's going to lead to scandals and things like that. But why else would you just suddenly stop a drug testing procedure if it wasn't that the vast majority of players were taking them? If the players aren't playing, you haven't got a tour anymore. So this is, you know, a widespread drug that is being used in order to boost performance. But, you know, it's only used for those performers who need, you know, precision. Like I said, golf, archery, snooker are the big three that you'd think of using beta blockers. So finally, again, as you'd expect with any of these, what are going to be the side effects? Well, if you're lowering heart rate, if you're lowering blood pressure, if you're reducing all these things associated with nervousness, that's good, but it's also going to lead to problems such as increased fatigue. You're going to feel very, very tired. The heart isn't beating as fast. The blood isn't being forced through the blood vessels as quickly due to the low blood pressure. So there's a big issue there for some performers. The big one though is, and this can't be emphasised enough, very low heart rate and, I'll just put BP, blood pressure during sleep. There have even been incidents of people reporting their partners have stopped breathing, something we call sleep apnea, during sleep due to the effects of beta blockers because the heart rate drops dangerously low, the blood pressure drops dangerously low. If you've been given them by a doctor for your blood pressure condition, you're taking them at a safe medicated dose. So there's very little risk of that happening. But if you're taking them because you've got hold of some and you want to take them to boost your performance, you don't know how much you should be taking in order to boost performance. And think about what athletes do. Some is good, so more must be better. That's pretty much the case with all these illegal substances we've spoken about there. But the problem is the more you take, the increased risk of the side effects. So that's what you've got to be very, very careful of. Like I said, you could get a short answer question on each of these worth 3 or 4 marks, asking you to talk about the benefits and the side effects. Equally, you could get them all together or 3 of them together as part of an essay question. But again, you attack it the same way. Why risk taking them? So what are the benefits of taking them? But ultimately, what are the side effects? Hope you found this useful, folks. Have a look at the information in the books as well to supplement what we've just gone through there. But watch these videos as many times as you want to make sure you get a good grasp of these 4 substances and what they do in terms of the benefits and side effects. Thank you very much, folks. See you later.